to you. I'm Lisa Lord with the Tuesday, November 25th edition of the CBC Evening News. And our top story tonight, we hear an appeal for Barbados to have a full-time dedicated shelter to accommodate the increasing number of homeless people reportedly living in the city. A top official in a leading charity has expressed concern about the situation and wants such local organizations to band together to make it happen. Shane Seeley got a first-hand look at the situation last night in Bridgetown.
This is the scene in Hero Square, the city, every last Monday of the month. Most of these people right here are reportedly homeless, and we're here from 5:30. The food is provided by the Rotary Clubs of Barbados South and West, whose members give them tickets that allow them to get what is for some their first meal of the day. Brian Robinson, the Rotary South's Community Service Director, says even though close to 100 meals are distributed, sometimes they're not enough.
There have been nights we have been here where you had to use umbrellas and try and thing, but one thing for sure, these people will be here from as early as 5:30, lining up. There are more people than there can be fed. That is the problem.
He believes more needs to be done in general for the homeless, and that's why he thinks it's time to have a dedicated full-time shelter.
I think we have a lot of buildings around Barbados. We have to find one or so that we can convert into, I wouldn't necessarily say a hostel, but some sort of shelter where people can come. And it's tough because who's going to police it, who's going to manage it, who's going to pay for it. Those are a lot of issues that will come into play, and we'll just have to see how that goes. But it needs clubs like Rotary, it needs other social groups, community groups to step forward and make it happen.
He explains that such a center could help break the cycle of homelessness in Barbados and hopefully assist some of them in finding employment.
Where you can have a proper kitchen. We're serving meals in a car park. Where you have beds, and maybe if it could be shared with other community groups, where somebody can go and spend the night, maybe have a shave and a shower and so on, and maybe that could break the cycle, because they can't necessarily go and look for a job if you're carrying everything you own in a shopping cart or on your back. It's tough.
The Community Service Director says Rotary and other charities should consider taking the program to communities outside of the city. And the Rotary Clubs are expecting an increase in the number of people turning up for assistance over the Christmas period. That's why they'll be preparing approximately 200 hampers, which will go to the most needy and homeless people right here in the city. I'm Shane Seeley for CBC News.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Fundell Stewart has lauded the Barbados Vagrants and Homeless Society for the impressive work it has been doing for that vulnerable segment of the community. Mr. Stewart showered praise on the group recently when Chairman of the Society, Kimor Safri, and other officials paid him a courtesy call at government headquarters. He said he was pleased that there were people in Barbados, and more remarkably young people, who have the capacity to feel other people's pain, enter their lives, and transform them. Pointing out that some people would classify that kind of work as unpleasant, the Prime Minister insisted that it was work which had to be done. Mr. Safri said there were a number of areas on which his organization, which focuses on the rehabilitation of homeless persons, would like to collaborate with the government. The Air Traffic Control Department is getting some staff, but it won't be for a little while. It appears that government is moving to recruit 10 people to train as cadets in that department. This information from Acting General Secretary of the National Union of Public Workers, Rosalind Smith. The disclosure follows talks between the union, the Barbados Workers Union, the Personnel Administration Division, the Ministry of the Civil Service, and the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of International Transport. Those talks were held at Baobab Towers at Warrens yesterday and lasted for close to 3 hours. This move following industrial action earlier this month by air traffic controllers protesting working conditions and the non-filling of critical vacant posts. Ms. Smith says the NUPW has been assured that the positions are to be advertised shortly to have them filled by February next year, when training of the cadets can start. CBC understands it takes between 2 to 3 years to train an air traffic controller, and that these posts need to be filled to take the burden off the current staff who have been working prolonged hours for years. Ms. Smith says the talks yesterday between the various parties also discussed several other matters, including other terms and conditions of work and outstanding payments for acting assignments. The NUPW head says she'll be holding government to its word, given that the winter tourist season will be starting shortly, noting that air traffic controllers are vital to ensuring thousands of tourists visit these shores. The Environment Minister has defended his ministry's decision to put Barbados' position at several international conferences. Dr. Dennis Lowe says the ministry has sourced millions of dollars in grant funding, which has enabled it to attend such conferences at no expense to the government.
In the Ministry of the Environment, over the last 5 years, we have been able to raise millions of dollars in grant funding, including the recent $10 million grant from the U.S. aid program. And if we look at our travel costs and we subtract our travel costs from those grant dollars, it means that taxpayers of Barbados do not pay a cent for the Ministry of the Environment to travel.
A man is in police custody assisting with investigations into the recent suspected murder which occurred at Half Moon Fort in St. Lucie over the weekend. Police Public Relations Officer Acting Assistant Superintendent David Welch tells CBC News lawmen are making progress with the probe, but he could not say if charges could be laid soon. In the wee hours of Saturday morning, 49-year-old Martin Graves of Half Moon Fort, St. Lucie, was killed during an altercation after receiving several stab wounds about the body. Meantime, police continue investigations into the unnatural death of 33-year-old Mark Walton of Fitz Village, St. James. Walton was at a bus shed last Monday night in the community when he was attacked by two men. One of them reportedly shot him and fled the scene. A wanted St. James man, meantime, has been captured. Aaron Francisco Joseph, 22 years, of Yearwood Road, Mount Standfast, was held this morning in Barbries Hill, St. Michael, following a police operation. Joseph is currently being questioned in connection with several criminal matters. Well, the driver of a lorry escaped death this afternoon after he apparently lost control of his vehicle, which fell 40 feet over a cliff. Trevor Burke, 50 years, of Ellerton, St. George, was at the time delivering a consignment of building material to a residence at Durance Village. Burke received a wound to the back of his head and he complained of pains to his back and legs. He was transported to the QEH by ambulance. The homeowner, who was at a neighbor at the time, said the steps leading to her home were damaged.
He was reversing and it seemed as though he had a problem with the gears. So of course then the brakes would not have worked. Okay. So he had no choice but to come over. That's the cliff there. It's about 25 feet down, almost 40. Yeah. And he landed right by the wall of my house.
Well, more news ahead in just a moment, but first we want to get your take on this question. Do you believe Barbados needs a dedicated shelter to house the homeless? Text yes or no to short code 8111, the result at the end of our news.
Attention! No sticks, no stones can break my bones when I'm drinking.
Pine Hill milk.
Reminisce and bring back the memories. Comey presents Wrap Yourself Round the Flag, Saturday, November 29th at Kensington Oval from 9 p.m. Wear your national colors and celebrate your nationhood with the Troubadours International, Promise, Mr. Dale, Richard Stout, Tony Grisette, Carolyn Leacock, and from New York, Lou Jake Skirton. Tickets on sale at Ticket Pal box offices at $48. Get your early bird and board member tickets at $40. Wrap yourself round the flag, a night of patriotic nostalgia.
Barbados Lumber Company, Waterford and Spicetown will celebrate independence with a massive store-wide sale this Friday, November 28th and Saturday, November 29th. Follow the crowd and get 20% discount on a wide range of lumber, plywood, paints, domestic hardware including curtains, linens, and many more items. Share in the joy of nationhood with your 20% discount from Barbados Lumber Company this Friday and Saturday. Terms strictly cash. This offer does not apply to cement and already reduced items.
Barbados Lumber Company.
Come and
bring the whole family to see armed and unarmed troops marching in precision at this year's Independence Day Parade on Monday, December 1st, now at the Bridgetown port beginning at 8 a.m.
On Saturday, November 29th, wrap yourself around the flag and celebrate independence with quality Barbadian artists. CBC joins COMI in celebrating national pride.
A local social worker believes Barbados needs laws to address violence in the workplace. Natalie Murray is of the opinion that the Safety and Health at Work Act does not go far enough.
We have to really stand up and take action against workplace violence. All is not lost, brothers and sisters. Recently, the government of Barbados, they have instituted the Health and Safety Act. And we know there's nothing in our Health and Safety Act that speaks to workplace violence. But the National Union of Public Workers, we can lobby and advocate that an amendment be made to the Act to include workplace policies that deal with workplace violence.
Her comments came at the National Union of Public Workers headquarters during a panel discussion surrounding violence in the workplace. It was part of their celebration of UN Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Meantime, First Vice President of the NUPW, Akani McDowell, says violence in the workplace is not just physical, but also psychological.
When we talk about workplace violence, we must always understand that there's a psychological aspect to workplace violence. And we must take into consideration that the psychological aspect can have a significant impact on how productive an individual can be at work. So not to look at productivity as a person not wanting to be at work or just not feeling like working today or during the week, but think of that person as an individual who might be experiencing psychological impacts from workplace violence.
Calls are being made in Barbados for an updated Domestic Violence Protection Act. They come as government and women's groups on the island observe International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Chairman of the SAVE Foundation, Lizelle Daisley, says the current legislation is outdated.
It's time that we bring it into the 21st century now. We're calling on the government of Barbados to revise the old act and update the new one and amend it so that more rights are given to the victims of domestic violence.
And UN Women in a statement said globally 1 in 3 women will experience physical or sexual violence at some point in her life. It believes the matter can be combated through prevention strategies that address the root causes of gender inequality. It also wants greater support for women's organizations, which are often on the front line of the response. While there is a need for childcare providers to promote the importance of active play among young children, the suggestion from Public Relations Officer at Sandals Resort Barbados Inc., David Hines. He was speaking at a recent seminar for children at Solidarity House.
Now I find in the technology age, there's not so much play as it is gaming and computers and television and so on. So I'm hoping with this program, the element of mommy, daddy, and so on, you brought back so many memories, hide and seek and so on, will be taught again to kids, and they will actually go outside and play and enjoy themselves, because that's what made, for me, still relatively youngish, that's what made us, interact. We developed friendships, we had appreciation for our elders and respect and so on, as Denise mentioned, and that's important with today's kids. It's amazing how they can operate a smartphone, but when it comes to reading a book, simple addition, subtraction, unless they have a calculator or iPad, they're in trouble.
Practitioner and consultant with the Foundation for the Development of Caribbean Children, Dr. Carol Logie, says she would like to see more early childhood care providers, both in the private and public sectors, collaborating on these matters.
We want to be able to not only be in one place, but to be able to take it throughout to the rest of the island. So we are working on a model that works. We are going to continue to improve on what we deliver. and we need your help to do that. We would like this to be something that is grown here in Barbados, and so we are very aware of what is culturally appropriate for you and for your national plans for development. So we're here to work with you, and the foundation certainly wants to be one of those institutions and foundations that will work with you as you develop within your career.
Regional news is next, but first a reminder that we want to hear from you on this question. Do you believe Barbados needs a dedicated shelter to house the homeless? Text yes or no to short code 8111, the result at the end of our news. And you can also follow